Welcome back to another episode of History Uncovered. I'm your host today, and today we have a fascinating topic lined up for you: Freemasonry and its historical lineage stemming from the Knights Templar. Join me as we dissect not just its origins, but also the cultural conversations surrounding it. We have a special guest, Dr. Sarah Adams, a historian specializing in medieval history and Freemasonry. Welcome, Dr. Adams.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share insights into such an elusive and often misunderstood institution.
Let's start by understanding what Freemasonry is. Freemasonry is known as a fraternal organization that brings together men from different backgrounds in a commitment to moral and ethical development. But what's interesting is how it connects to the Knights Templar, a medieval order of warrior monks originally founded to protect Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land.
Absolutely. The Knights Templar were formed in the early 12th century and swiftly gained immense power and wealth. But Freemasonry springs from something even more ancient than Templar traditions. Michael Bygant and Richard Lee, in their book, investigate these threads to present a historical analysis that seeks to clarify the actual ties rather than succumb to modern conspiracy theories.
It's so easy for history to become tangled with speculation. They emphasize a non-expose approach to Freemasonry, focusing on a cross-section of its historical evolution rather than rampant rumors about corruption and conspiracy. What can you tell us about that background?
Their central thesis posits that Freemasonry's roots are deeper in medieval history than generally acknowledged. They argue that Freemasonry evolved significantly during the late 18th century, and that this evolution is underscored by a powerful influence from the Knights Templar.
And we certainly can't ignore the cultural phenomenon that surrounded Freemasonry, especially in the 1980s in Britain, when it became a topic worthy of intense public discourse and even suspicions.
Right. During that time, institutions like the Anglican Church began questioning the compatibility of Freemasonry with Christianity. The media played its part too by conducting exposés. It was almost like a societal blood sport. Everyone was vying to see who could uncover these secret practices. Yet, paradoxically, Freemasonry drew public fascination precisely because of that scrutiny. It's like a moth to a flame.
But how do the authors address the allegations of corruption that so often accompany discussions about Freemasonry? That seems vital to this historical examination.
They lay out a nuanced framework, emphasizing that corruption exists universally, not just within the ranks of Freemasons. They frame greed, favoritism, and self-aggrandizement as part of human nature. This perspective allows for an understanding of Freemasonry as a conduit for behavior, rather than a source of corruption itself.
That's such an important distinction. Just like we don't condemn entire churches because of individual clerical corruption, should we apply the same standard to Freemasonry? It's a subject that invites a lot of contemplation.
Exactly. It raises interesting questions about institutional integrity versus individual actions. The authors, who are not Freemasons themselves, maintain scholarly objectivity without any biases. They also challenge the contemporary Anglican Church's newfound antagonism towards Freemasonry, suggesting that it stems from changes in attitude rather than deep-seated theological differences.
That's fascinating. There's this notion of historical cooperation. Have the Church and Freemasonry always been at odds?
On the contrary, historical records indicate that prominent members of the Anglican Church have participated in Freemasonry since the 17th century. The tension we see today could largely be viewed as a recent aberration rather than an age-old schism.
We're uncovering such a rich tapestry of history. And what about the author's archaeological pursuits to discover physical links to the Templars in Scotland? It sounds like an adventurous detective story.
It really is. Their investigative journey began in 1978, sparked by early research for a documentary on the Knights Templar. They came across intriguing local legends about Templar graves in Argyll, which compelled them to dive deeper into these assertions, even amid initial skepticism.
And when they finally set off for Loch Awe, they encountered this mixture of historical potential and local myths, like the mythical creature Beathach Moor.
Exactly. It was a bit of an adventure. The exploration team faced challenges like evasiveness from locals. Interestingly, they found open Masonic texts, hinting at a deeper, perhaps hidden connection to Freemasonry within the community.
What a significant moment. It reminded them of the profound significance that certain places hold beyond just the whispers of legend. Burials from long distances were reported.
However, during their investigation, they initially ended up on the wrong island. Instead of uncovering Templar evidence, they found only a diminutive chapel with graves dating from 1732 to the 1960s. It was a good reminder that historical quests can be unpredictable.
What an adventure in searching and sometimes misstepping. But it was at Kilmartin that they stumbled upon something unexpected.
Yes, in Kilmartin Parish, they found a graveyard marked by up to 80 flatstones dating back to around 1300. Their conditions were telling. Some were austere, while others included elaborate carvings and Masonic symbols.
What's so compelling is that the absence of Christian iconography in these graves begs many questions. In a time when the church was primarily dominant, is it unusual to see graves absent the familiar symbols?
Precisely. It challenges our understanding of burial customs and what it meant to hold an identity. The unfamiliar nature of these graves, lacking ornamentation, were they by design to emphasize humility, or did they signal a different faith altogether?
That's the key, isn't it? It pushes us to consider those buried in Kilmartin as possibly linked to the Templar practices of anonymity and simplicity. Templars typically had austere graves as virtue of their lifestyle.
This connection strengthens the idea that something unique may unify these historical figures in the graves we see at Kilmartin and the Templars. Their investigation opens an intriguing door into our understanding of history, humanity, and what binds us through time.
The stories of the rich and powerful often remind us of the human stories of anonymity. They may have held lofty ideals, but left humble graves. As we wrap up our discussion, what are the key takeaways you'd want our listeners to remember?
First, it's essential to regard Freemasonry's rich history as far more intricate and rooted than many modern narratives suggest. We should differentiate between the common negative perceptions and the historical institutional integrity of the order. It's equally vital to understand how our interpretations can shift over time, especially with cultural circumstances and changing attitudes.
Absolutely. The intertwining narratives of the Templars and Freemasons remind us that history is rarely linear. Each archaeological discovery or societal shift calls for a reinterpretation of what's known. It leaves our audience with lingering questions about what defines institutions and how history continues to shape our present.
Well said. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Dr. Adams, for shedding light on these historical connections. Tune in next week as we explore another captivating topic in the realm of history.